Good morning. By my clock, it's about 9 a.m. on Monday, and I just wanted to take a moment before I dive into Mental Health Monday this morning. I've got some feedback that says, hey, sometimes it's hard to find you right at the moment that it starts, and so I'm going to take just about a minute and a half at the front end here, talk about something different than the main point today, and then jump into it. So if you are watching this after live, feel free to scoot forward about 30 seconds into the video if you want to. I'm sorry, a minute and a half into the video if you want to, and if you don't care anything about masks. And so what I'm looking at is these masks are masks that I have made. Well, that one was out of coffee filters. This one is out of hair ties and a bandana with a place in the middle for another filter. And then my sister sent me one that she made, sewed, and it's obviously a much better quality. Who knew that a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, who knew that we would be trying to figure out ways that we can make our own masks, right? Later on today, if I can carve out time for it, I have a project of trying some origami folding with some masks out of some HEPA filters. So that will be interesting. So here it is. Looks like about 2 minutes in, and I'm going to just jump in, recognizing that we have covered some significant ground, right? So we've talked about a timeline of emotions, how we only live right in the here and now, but our attention can be focused in the past, which is where it mostly is focused with either sadness or with anger. And when it's focused in the past, it's focused on these specific time points that our attention is on. And then with fear, it's no longer focused in the discrete set of points in the past. It's focused in this cone of uncertainty that explodes into the infinite very quickly. And that the infinite is God's territory, and there's a reason why in Scripture he says don't when he talks about fear. Don't go into the future. Don't turn your attention to the future without me. Because the infinite is my space. We took a look at that. We looked at a few other things. Last week, we took a look at 3 pieces that we wove together into a specific tool. We looked at how our hearts are designed to be a conduit, not a container, and that when we turn it into a container and hold everything in, that turns into negative things inside us. We looked at the dynamic of bilateral stimulation, giving the brain left, right stimulation, and how that connects the head to the heart a little bit more fluidly. And then we took a look at how gratitude can be a hugely powerful tool in changing our emotional and mental focus. And then we wove that together into a tool that we call the David Walk, patterned after David's ability in Psalms to be able to talk about pouring out everything that is bugging him, and then being able to pivot and turn towards gratitude and praise, and how that can be a very effective tool for us even on a 3-minute, 5-minute, 6-minute walk. And so today we're going to be turning the corner a little bit, and we're going to be looking at that old adage a little bit by Benjamin Franklin. You know, Benjamin Franklin is famous for saying guests like fish begin to smell after 3 days, and how there are good things and good people that we care about that when we're with them too long, it ends up turning sour. And so one of the realities is that we're moving into week 3 of a stay-at-home order here in Florida, and even family members that we really care about and love and want to be around. It gets more and more challenging to be around each other. There's more stress. My wife and I just celebrated 30 years of marriage, and it's been awesome. We have learned a lot about each other, We've learned a lot about getting along well, seeking to bless each other in a number of different ways, but I've noticed this past week that it's been easier to snip at each other. It's been easier for me to snip at her, I should say, at least. And that we're carrying around a significant level of stress, whether it's how do I build a mask because I hear that places around me are requiring it now to go out, or it just might be wise before I go out, to all kinds of other things that we're carrying. And so, our stay-at-home order was originally set on March 27th, and it was supposed to go until, 2 weeks, March 9th, and we're past that, and it's going to keep on going, and it's the right thing, but it changes what we're doing. And so it's easy for us in this environment to go towards those things that are that have worked for us, that are comfort items. It's easy to go towards just a little bit more chocolate, a little bit more wine, a little bit more alcohol, or Netflix, or all those kinds of things that have helped us over time when we're not in this extra stressful place, take a little bit of stress and feel a little bit better. And there is nothing wrong with those things. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them, but they can turn into something that's not helpful at all for us. And so there's the top 10 addictions in America based on the Addiction Center, which is a drug and rehab center that has places in all 50 states, says that the top 4 out of 10 addictions are tobacco, alcohol, pot, and painkillers. And so we could add to that Netflix, sleeping, food, and sex, right? And so we could just kind of add in those things that we go to feel better, to be more comforted, to want to feel different than we're feeling right now. And then there becomes that question, okay, so how do I know what is use and what is abuse? Because it's okay to use these things, but it can easily turn into something that's not helpful. In 1 Timothy 5, we hear Paul talking to young Timothy, and he says, no longer drink water exclusively, but use a little wine for the sake of your stomach and for your frequent ailments. Apparently he had stomach problems and was sick a lot. And so wine can be used as a comfort, as a medicinal, it's fine to use wine. But in Ephesians 5, we also see do not get drunk with wine, and the invitation is to instead be filled with the Spirit. So there's this difference between use and abuse. And we find the same thing even with food. Okay, so in 1 Corinthians 6, it talks about food is for the stomach and the stomach is for food, but God will do away with both of them. But then in Proverbs it says, for the heavy drinker and the glutton will come to poverty. So alcohol, food, like there's this awareness in Scripture that we see that honors that use is okay, abuse is devastating. And so what we want to do is find a way to be able to figure out how do I tell the difference. I love this verse in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 12. And it actually appears twice in Scripture, but this one I like a lot. 1 Corinthians 6:12 says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. So it gives this invitation to recognize, is this profitable for me? Is this actually helping me? Is this moving me in the direction of things that are goals for me, or things that are good for me? It also says all things are lawful for me, but I won't be mastered by anything. And that's one of the keys too, is this starting to control me? So I think about, for instance, the food piece, and there's that phrase when you go off to college that there's the freshman 15, and that is something that is at least tangible. Okay, so I can measure that my weight has gone up by 15 pounds, and so there's something there that gives me a very specific tool to measure whether or not I'm moving in a healthy direction. And in this atmosphere, when we're moving towards things, so Oreos are amazing, right? And mint Oreos are extra amazing. And I found that there are these things called thin Oreos. And so thin Oreos are great, right? Because it seems like you could eat 3 of them and they only count as 1. Maybe 2 of them and they only count as 1. But the challenge is the box still disappears just as quick. So, we have these challenges with how do I figure out what is, it's lawful, but is it profitable? It's lawful, but is it controlling me? Like, I can do it, but when do I know when it's past that place? And so these days, we are many of us are battling what probably will become known over time, instead of the freshman 15, as the 2020-20. And so our belt loops are one notch bigger, so to speak, and some things don't fit as tightly, as loosely as they did before. And so we want to be able to kind of recognize those things and adjust and figure out, when has this started controlling me? One of the things I wanted to invite you to, if alcohol is that piece that is for you, the thing that's easy to go to, there are screening tools that are helpful to ask even questions. I wanted to read a little bit of for you from that. If you go to WebMD, which sometimes is a great resource and sometimes it's not as great a resource, but it has a great screening tool for what they call alcohol use disorder, which is only 11 questions. And those 11 questions, I just want to take a minute and read them to you. And actually, these 11 questions are very similar to the kinds of questions, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, whether it's Netflix, no matter what it is, these questions are helpful to screen. Am I using this or am I abusing this? So, here's the question. In the past year, or in the past 3 weeks, say, have you had times when you drank more for longer than you meant to? Have I watched Netflix for longer than I meant to? Have I tried or wanted to try multiple times to cut back or stop drinking or using whatever, but couldn't? Have I spent a lot of time drinking or getting over the effects of alcohol? Has it taken up a significant amount of time? Have I felt a strong need, urge, or craving toward that thing, drinking or whatever? Have I found that drinking or its effects kept me from doing work, going to school, or taking care of my family or people I care about? So is it taking priority over things that really matter in life? Have I continued to use even when it caused tension with family and friends? So if I get feedback, do I ignore that feedback? If it ends up putting pressure on my family in different ways, or people that I care about, how do I tune into that? Have I skipped out on or decreased activities I enjoy so I could use? More than once have I found myself doing risky things during or after use, and for this specifically, it's talking about like driving or having unsafe sex if I'm drinking. And so the question is, if I'm using, does it kind of put me in a different mental state when I'm not as thinking as clearly? Have I kept drinking even though it made you black out, feel sad or anxious, or made other health problems worse? Have I had to drink more than once to get the same effect? And have I felt withdrawal symptoms from alcohol like insomnia, shakiness, nausea, or a racing heart? And their take is, if I answered yes to any of those, I might have something they call alcohol use disorder. And so that is moving from that place of use to abuse. And we want to just kind of be aware of that in this environment where we are. There's lots of extra pressures that we're under, and this is a long distance race, not a sprint. And so we're going to find those things that are comforting for us. And how do we honor the reality that it's fine to have some alcohol, it's fine to have some Oreo cookies, it's fine to watch some Netflix, it's fine to do any of those things, but it's not always profitable, and sometimes it can master us. So One of the things I just wanted to invite us quickly into, and we'll spend a little bit more focused time on it in future weeks, is just talking about establishing healthy rhythms. And you're already doing this, right? So you're already figuring out, okay, so at some point I need to take off my day pajamas and put on my night pajamas. What time do I do that? You're thinking through how can I get out of the house, and an essential activity is exercise. So can I go running? Can I go walking? Okay, so what I want to invite you into is doing that in a purposeful way and not doing it alone. So in the areas of sleep, exercise, eating, those are all physical. So there's some rhythms that we can move into with the physical. In addition to that, we can move into some things on the mental rhythms. We can seek to learn something. We can listen to podcasts. We can grow in our understanding of areas that are of interest to us. We can learn how to make homemade masks from different ways. In emotional rhythms, we can learn to journal. We can do David walks using some of the tools that we've talked over time on. And in spiritual rhythms, for sure. So being able to move into prayer in a specific way, scripture in a specific way, being able to love others well, letting the love that we've received from God pour out into others. So we'll talk more next week about those rhythms and establishing them well. Just wanted to open that window and recognize that everything that I'm doing right now to navigate with the difficulties that my heart is going through, not everything is bad that I'm doing. They're good things, but there is that tipping point that I come to, and I want to be able to navigate through that. When I get to that place that I notice that this is it has tipped over, like I can ask for help. I can talk with a friend. I can talk with a family member. I can talk to somebody in my life group or small group at church, in my spiritual community. I can reach out to a counselor. I don't have to do this alone. And if somebody around me reaches out and says, hey, can we talk about blank, I want to try to receive that too as a blessing and as care for me instead of as something that's going to take away something I'm depending on. So all things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but I won't be mastered by anything. So if this is helpful for you, feel free to share it. Feel free to like it. In future this week, Pastor John will be talking about transcendence and immanence tomorrow on his Facebook Live. He's also got a weekly Facebook Live on the spiritual disciplines, and so don't forget to tune into that. This past weekend on Friday and Saturday, Thursday and Friday maybe, he did a 5-part series as Scripture approaches the cross, and it was really, really amazing. So if you missed that, then feel free to tune back into that one. So it's really good to be with you and praying for you and for yours in this time when we have so many things pulling at us. It's great to be with you. Take care.